and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world watching this. Welcome to yet another session of inspiring conversations. And just to remind you, you can find inspiring conversations on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook. And if you can't remember something with inspiring conversations, just use Dr. Google and Mr. Bing. So, and any listen can help me get more followers. Bing! So, today we are still live from Iceland. So, welcome to my stream. But just to remind a reminder why I am doing this every week and having great time. It's all about creating conversations that really matter. We are diving into ways to connect deeply, break down barriers, and build moments that inspire trust and growth. Whether it's with your team at work or in your everyday chats, we will bring more positivity, realness, and impact into every conversation. And as mentioned, I am in Iceland, and this is my part of my hometown, Kópavogur, and I live by the ocean. So enough about that, because my guest today is in Colorado, if I remember correctly, and he has written 3 books. I think this is the second one, Awakening the Soul of Power: How to Live Heroically and Set Yourself Free. It's always about the how do you say this stuff? How to live heroically and set yourself free. And my guest today, drum rolls please, is Christian de la Huerta. Christian de la Huerta.
Beautiful. Thank you. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. I was just like I was so practicing your name because I like, hey, Christian de la Huerta.
That's
To
good.
be a little bit Spanish. So tell me, welcome, and thank you for joining me on this quest of inspiring conversations. Uh, Tell me one thing, because your name, I don't know why. I would buy a fragrance from you. Like if you have any oil to, whatever, for the face and whatever. Well, like you remind me of Oscar de la Renta, or like, do you have some stuff like you can send?
No, I wish I did, but
Well,
no.
maybe a business idea. Maybe you can because you are soul power. So welcome, and as I mentioned, you have written this book, Awakening the Soul of Power: How to Live Heroically. How do you say it? The word he.
Heroically, yeah, you said it right.
Oh, thank you. And set yourself free. But you also have written a book called
Conscious love is the most recent one.
Conscious Love,
Which is
transforming our relationships to relationships. But
exactly.
before we go into all of that, I think you have a history of, I can see you in a shirt, in a tie, in a suit, and we have to go into like, what is your path to the journey you are on now? So give us a little bit of like pre-history about who Christian de la Huerta is.
That's funny. I did work for corporate for many years, but it's been 30 years. I've been on my own as a coach and a retreat facilitator and author for over 3 years, and a breathwork facilitator. So I started, I was born in Cuba. So I was born in a communist regime, lived there for my first 10 years of life until my family emigrated to the US without speaking a word of English, which was not fun. Um, and then, my family's still in Florida. I lived many, many years in California. I come out of the psychotherapy tradition. My father was a psychiatrist. My degree's in psychology. And I was on a track to get a PhD in psychology until I discovered breathwork, and that changed my life. So I've been doing that, offering that all over the world for the last 30 years.
And the country you came from is Cuba, wasn't it?
Cuba, correct.
Yeah. So how was it like? How old were you when you came over to the US?
I was young. I was 10.
Yeah, but how was it for a 10-year-old coming to like everything different and like wherever, like the lights and big buildings and flashing lights, and like that is what I imagine how, like when you see the pictures from New York, and there are LED signs all over, and you're like, you must have been just like, what?
I
Or
think the most impactful thing that I remember was going to my first supermarket. Um,
yeah.
because in a communist country, you just didn't have the choice. Everything was rationed, and you had so many loaves of bread and gallons of milk that you could get per kid if they had it, because a lot of times they didn't have it to be bought. And suddenly, walking to a supermarket with 10 choices for everything, and just overwhelming, the colors and the scents and the choices, stuff that I had only read about, like apples or ham or stuff like that. And here's an interesting story. Like, what's chewing gum for us in the West? It's like we don't even think about chewing gum. We put a stick of gum in our mouth and we spit it out without even thinking about it. And I'll say that we had it better than most, because my parents had friends who worked for foreign embassies. So a lot of the times we had access to products that we could get through embassies that most of the
Mhm.
average Cubans couldn't get. But my siblings and I, we used to get like a pack of chiclets, and split them equally and fairly between the kids, and then we chew our gum all day, and at the end of the day, get a glass of water. With that much water, put toothpaste in it with a gum, and so that it'd be minty the next day, and hide it so my mom wouldn't throw it out. And we keep that going for a week, 10 days, until she found it and threw it out. Um, yeah.
It's a survival.
Totally,
I want my gum. And chew
totally.
it like
Yeah.
after half an hour. I don't like chewing gum, but like because it's just like you are so tired. But for 10 days,
Yeah.
but how is it like then when you came? Because I remember like people talked about it here because the U.S. Army came in 1941 because they had a base here in Iceland because of the Second World War, and they introduced Coca-Cola and chewing gum, Wrigley's, like that was the thing, and and people were just like, whoa! It was like just, is this freedom?
Yeah.
Weird stuff. So is your family still in Cuba, or how did they all
No,
come over, or are you like
no,
how is it
everybody
for you?
left. Everybody emigrated or, passed. I think we have
Yeah,
some distant second, third cousins, but I don't even know them. So,
yeah.
yeah,
So have
most
you been?
everybody left.
Because now things are changing and there are stuff happening. Would you consider like would you go back?
I'd visit for sure. I did. I've visited maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean, like, would you move there? Because
Probably not.
if there would be changes, then they would be like, I gather that they would be radical because
Yeah, it would have to be radical changes. And the main thing, you mentioned the word freedom, and I mean, my parents, conspired with the CIA against the Castro regime, so that their children could grow up in freedom. A lot of their friends were imprisoned and tortured, executed by firing squad. Um, so freedom is not something that was taken lightly in my family. It was something that people made sacrificed everything for.
yeah,
Um, and the freedom to that we take for granted, to study whatever we want to study, to travel, to come and go.
yeah,
Um, those freedoms are not available in a totalitarian uh, communist regime.
and that is important to remember that people who actually lived it, they know what they're talking about. But and that's why it's weird in the current state in the US, like where are you heading in life? Like how will it be? Because you never know. But I think it's so important to honor their sacrifices, and you must be, and your siblings must be really grateful for your parents taking that step,
Yeah,
although it
really.
cost.
Yeah, of course. I mean, some of them were too young. Like I'm second oldest, and so the younger, my younger siblings don't remember what it was like to be there.
Uh,
Um, and so yeah, for me it was, and my older sister was incredibly life changing and overwhelming to emigrate to the U.S. and Spain. We left through Spain originally, um, but it was really my parents were really the ones, who felt
yeah,
the difference because they knew what it was like before communism, um, and they also knew what it was like to live in fear.
yeah. And that is what happens when this regime starts to pull. I just want to give David Pushkin a shout out because he says, "Hello, all hailing from London, UK. I am your chief encouragement officer." And yes, he is. Looking forward to this encouraging conversation hosted by the mayor of happiness.
That's
Uh,
cool.
well, and then he says, the theme of gratitude for the small things is really resonating already in this conversation. So, does it mean that we are finished? No. So, thank you, David, for being with us. So okay, you moved there, and you, when you got then into the English, and you probably went to elementary school, and you had this and that in your life, because all of a sudden you can learn stuff and you can like open your brain and just like take in all of the stuff. Although back then, when we were younger, because we are 29 plus, uh, then it was like you read the news the day after.
Right.
Not
Right.
everything was just like in the minute,
Yeah.
like where today people are just like, ooh, and then you have to go. So how the freedom of, like, when you started, did you appreciate the freedom of in the school, that you could learn stuff, or like, because now, okay, can you remember being in school before 10 years old, and then
Yeah.
when you came over to US?
Yeah, I remember being in school in Cuba. I mean, at the time, we were so young, we didn't realize how much of it was being filtered.
Yeah.
Um, that we didn't have access to information like we do here, in the free world. Um, but at the time, you really know. You don't know any
No,
better when you're that young.
you
But
were just a kid. Yeah.
yeah, but I do remember, like, things. For example, my sister and I were good students, and we were always at the top of the class until they found out that my parents had applied for a visa to emigrate to the U.S. And once that happened, you were considered like a traitor to the revolution, and you were called gusano, which means worm. And I remember being in, second grade, third grade, and being called worm by my teachers, which is kind of, mind-boggling for a little kid to be called
Yeah.
out from by a teacher. Um,
Yeah, because you don't understand at that age. You don't understand the politics behind that word, and nobody does. So
right.
it's just like, ugh. Like, and you were maybe what, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. It's just like
70 years
horrific.
old.
Yeah.
And they were mean, like no more cookies at break, no more awards. We never got another award after that.
Oh, it's like the stupidest thing that people
It
do.
is so stupid. It's so stupid.
And yeah, and especially when kids are involved, because I'm a social educator basically, like, and I just hate the injustice when kids can't get food, or they like, and they haven't got a clue why we are speaking like this, or people are so angry all the time, and like, it's either or, the discussion. You are they
Correct.
are just like, can I go out and play now? It's like, but
Seriously,
but
that's what you
okay,
want to do.
yeah, yeah. So when you got, like, you got into the English, did you become again the good student or good school kid as you were, or and did you get some rewards in when you were in school in Florida, or where you lived?
Yeah, we're always good students, so
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, and at that age, you pick up a new language fairly quickly, and for me, it was like no choice. My sister had a couple of Spanish speaking people in her class, but in my class, I was the only one, so it was sink or swim. I had to pick up the language, and at that age, you learn fast. I don't remember it fondly. I don't have good memories of that phase. Feeling different, like not understanding what was going on or what was being said. But you pick it up fast at that age.
But how did the other ones, how were you received? Did they look at you as a, because you were like moving from a regime and then you came to US, land of the free and everything, like, how did the kids look at you when you came?
Well, we lived when we first came, we didn't live in Miami, which is where my family eventually moved to, where has a large
Population,
Latino
yeah,
population.
Cubans, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's more than half Cuban, but it's a lot of South Americans too. It's not
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just Cubans these days. It was originally mostly Cuban, but now more than half of the population in Miami is Latino, but all of South America. Um, a lot of South Americans and Brazilians, and live down there. So the kids,
Yeah.
kids can be mean. Kids can be cruel, and
Mhm.
I had a couple of protectors, that took care of me and
Yeah.
gave me books to read, and it gave me cigarettes at the time. We were in seventh grade and hiding smoking at breaks,
Yeah,
but
okay.
yeah,
You were really
yeah.
involved in the community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Seventh grade. What, are you 12 then? Or 13?
yeah. I must have been, yeah, it must have, well, it started out in sixth grade, so I must have been 11. Um,
Whoa. Okay, I thought I started, like, I was 12 and I'm 29 plus now. Shibu. No, I quit
yeah,
smoking
yeah, no, but
I
that
quit
didn't last
smoking in
long.
98, so like it was the worst habit ever. I didn't
Oh
even
my
like
god, no.
smoking.
Yeah, I didn't like it, so it wasn't a problem for me. I didn't pick it up. Um,
But you don't look like a guy who is in need of protectors now, like you are.
oh god, no, no,
You
like,
love your gym, I see.
yeah, I do work out, and it's I feel like it's part of my job, that to take care. If I'm talking about personal empowerment and about self acceptance and self love, I've got to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I've got to take care of this vehicle that allows us to be here in third dimensional reality.
Yeah,
Um,
it would be weird if you came into a lecture like smoking and reading of
right.
alcohol and being thin as whatever, like just
Right.
like, well, let's talk about empowerment.
Yeah. Yeah. It would
That
be
would be weird.
hypocritical. It would be
Yes.
incongruent, hypocritical. I wouldn't be, there would be a disconnection between what I teach and what I am.
Yeah. But how is it? So you finished high school and all that, and then you got your degree in psychology, and then
Yeah.
you like discovered breath work. Do you call it breathing work, or how do you
Breathwork,
say it?
yeah. And breathwork is a large umbrella term. There's a lot of different breathing practices and techniques. Anybody who's ever gone to yoga has done breathwork. The type of breathwork that I do is it's kind of breathwork on steroids. So you breathe in a certain way for about an hour, and amazing stuff happens. Um, like I've yet to come across anything that heals emotional and psychological trauma as quickly and as efficiently. That's why I didn't go for the PhD, because it works so fast. And
Uh,
and with all due respect to psychotherapy, in the right hands with clear goals, it can be incredibly supportive and even life changing. And we all know that you can sit on somebody's couch for decades and nothing happens, just rehashing the same old crap. And the
yeah,
reason for that is that the understanding what happened to us when we were 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, and the effect it had on our life is great and is important, and it certainly beats not knowing, not being aware. But the trauma no longer lives in the body. The trauma has been somaticized and lives in the body. So no amount of talking about it, talking at it, is really going to clear it. And so that's the beauty of breath work. It bypasses the mind and it goes to the source of the trauma where it lives in the body and it clears it quickly,
Yeah.
really efficiently.
So you say 30 years. So if my calculations are correct, we are talking about around 95, 96 or something. Or was it sooner?
Since I've been doing breath work,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, now you have to calculate.
I think it
86,
was sooner. I think it was 89.
86 is 40 years. So
Yeah.
80, okay, 89. Because, and when you announced, like, did you tell your parents about this? And
Well,
like,
my parents, of course, the psychiatrist.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah, and what did you like? You marched into the door. I have found breath work. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
he didn't really get it. He never
yeah,
tried it. My mom tried it later,
okay,
and all my siblings have tried it. Um, and it's really amazing because in addition to healing as quickly as it does, it can be ecstatic. You can
yeah,
have amazing, deep experience of profound inner peace. I can't tell you how often I've heard people tell me that they got to the same place instead of the state of consciousness that they did on a sacred plant medicine journey, like
yeah.
mushrooms or um, ayahuasca or different things like that. So you can access that more expanded understanding of who we are and what we're doing here, just using the breath. And I know it sounds too good to be true, but I can't argue with the results. It works.
No, yeah, well, when you breathe, you can have a shallow breathing, and that is not good because you are not breathing like all the way. So isn't it something about that? But once they said that running was bad for you, so once we saw, remember when we were kids and you saw like the odd one out running, and you were just like, well, he will be dead. And I have never understood the concept of running because, like, I can run after a football or a soccer ball or whatever, but that, and I could breathe. I probably could breathe. So okay. So you and your father, he was not like totally. He did not dismiss you or whatever,
No,
and you,
he was good. He
yeah.
accepted.
Yeah. So when you like, because our topic we are talking about when power stops being about control, reclaiming authentic power in relationships, leaderships, and life. And that must
Mhm.
be something that we are talking about, like what you are. Oops, we have a question. May I ask if the breath work is speaking to the inner child to heal the trauma? From David Pushkin.
Yeah, thanks, David, for participating. Um, yeah, the trauma it heals trauma from the past, from whatever age. Um, I don't necessarily, use that concept of the inner child often. Um, I think the trauma is there, and yeah, most of the trauma originated when we were kids. So we definitely, people have recover memories from childhood. Um, People remember stuff and have cathartic releases. Because the thing is that most of us, and particularly us men, have been taught to suppress the emotions, to not feel. Somewhere
Mhm.
along the way, somebody decided erroneously and very mistakenly that the emotions are weakness, and the conditioning starts from a young age. Little boys don't cry.
Yep.
Um, and what is that? There's such a mistaken assumption in that. First, that the emotions are weakness. The emotions aren't strength. They're not weakness either. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just energies. Think of a 2-year-old having a total tantrum and meltdown. A minute later, they're playing like if nothing happened because they have their
Mhm.
emotions fully. And then they can move on to the next emotion. We get into trouble with the emotions because we stuff them. We don't allow ourselves to feel and much less communicate what we're feeling. But we know from physics, energy cannot be destroyed. And we now know from physics what used to be spiritual teaching that everything is energy. Now we know from quantum physics, everything is energy. Everything is vibration, even what feels solid. And so we know those emotions cannot be destroyed. So what happens is that we stuff them and we swallow them, and that doesn't go away. Only two things can happen: we stuff it and we stuff it, and then the next poor unfortunate soul says something to us the wrong way, and boom, volcanic explosion, and we cause harm to our relationships. Or we suppress it and we suppress it and we suppress it. Those energies have to come out. The energy is not static. So it starts seeping out and showing up as physical symptoms in the body: heart attacks, ulcers,
Oh, yeah,
cancer.
okay. Yeah. But you're like, because you have the psychology behind you, does that help you? Because then you can, like, how long does a breathing session take? Like, like, it can, okay, I know it varies because my things can be a 10 session worth or one session. Like, it depends on how receptive you are, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, the
how,
session itself takes about an hour.
okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, when you do it in a group, and I've done large groups, 50, 60, 70 people with assistants, people who train with me to do this. But it's generally about an hour, plus or minus, 10, 15 minutes. And
Isn't it
and
though?
go
Start
ahead.
people like you talked about people like they start crying or something, like when you are in a group of 50, 60, and then all of a sudden you have 25 people just
Oh
sobbing. Like,
yeah.
what the
Yeah.
heck do you do? It's just like,
Oh yeah. It
let
can
it all
feel
out.
like it can feel like mayhem. You have somebody laughing hysterically, somebody next to them crying their heart out all at once.
That's crazy. Like, it's just like fascinating to hear. I
It's
would
it's
like to be
amazing.
a fly on the. I would like to be a fly on the wall. Can you have a secret hidden camera next time you do it?
I never film it because I part of the important thing is for people to feel safe.
Yeah.
So
No,
I don't take photographs or have never videoed
but it was more of a lousy joke for me because I just like I would like I don't know how I would do it. Well, that's a question for another day. But
it.
okay, so you started to work with this, and we are talking about to reclaim the authentic power in relationship, leadership, and life, and you write a book about the like awakening the soul of power, and when people come to you, are they skeptical, like because there is it's a big thing, like when it's because you have relationships, yes, we all have our baggage, and then we have to mold ourselves, and usually the women, they say, or they get the question, have you trained him, like meaning that you have to put in the dishwasher and the washing machine and like be a good boy and be a house trained. It almost sounds like that. I was a mommy's boy, so I didn't have to lift a finger in my house. So my wife was sometimes like, "Your mother does not work,"
Right, right.
and leadership, like because you sometimes or most of the time you stumble upon leadership, like you are doing good in business or you are doing great at the office or whatnot, you've been noticed, and then all of a sudden you just been bumped up to a leadership role that you maybe never wanted or you didn't, and you haven't got a clue, and then you have all of these barriers.
Hmm.
So and life, well, that is just from zero to death, like it's just how you will react and stuff. But how, when leaders come to you, do they talk to you about, like, if it's a one-on-one session, I don't gather like a men like us would show up in a 50, 60, like then they have to probably talk to you first and
Right.
have a one session, one-to-one session before they dare
Mhm.
to enter a whole field of people.
Yeah.
So when they come to you, what is it that they talk about in their leadership? Maybe if we say like it is, they want to understand why they do this or that, and then they start the breathing session, and you say, It has nothing to do with the leadership. It has, when you figure out that it is with your
Yeah.
childhood. Or
Yeah. Most people come to me for that kind of deep work.
yeah,
Like I'm known for that kind of work. So they when they come to me, they're not expecting um, light or superficial work, and it's profoundly life changing. So yeah, they come for all sorts of different reasons. Either they're struggling at work or struggling at home with their relationships, or they're getting stuck in power struggles at work. Um, so I also I do work with corporations, and I have all over the world, and done trainings with leadership groups. And that's when I started to realize that most of us struggle around issues of power, because we've been conditioned to believe that power is a bad thing.
yeah,
With quotes like "power corrupts" and "absolute power corrupts absolutely." But what they didn't tell us about that quote is that Lord Acton, who wrote those words, was speaking specifically about political power, not the
uh,
personal power that you and I are talking about, and that we work with our clients with. And so then add to that we have witnessed both in our personal lives and out in the world, um, innumerable examples of and cases of abuses of power. And so what good person wants to be corrupted, or what good person wants to abuse power? And then on top of that, when you add to this denial of the emotions, and we hate conflict. So what happens when you put all that stuff together is we give away our power, our innate inherent power that no one can give us and no one can take away. We are the only ones who give it away. And for me, that's the most tragic part. The reasons for which we give it away. How many times have we said yes when inside we really feel no?
yeah,
But because we don't want to rock the boat of a relationship too much, or we don't want to create conflict, we override our true feelings, our desires, our preferences, our dreams, and we settle for an illusion of acceptance, and for crumbs, for morsels of pseudo love. So it's not a good strategy, because our fulfillment as human beings is dependent on that, on expressing all of who we are. And so if we're overriding our authentic selves, there's no way that we're going to be happy and fulfilled. And so what the book is about is like, how do we step into power in a different way? That's not about hierarchy, control, fear, force, or domination. That doesn't require that we push anybody down, step on them in order for us to feel power. So I compare what I call worldly power or ego power, with spiritual power or soulful powers. And by the way, there's no need to believe in anything quote unquote spiritual.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
there's no dogma associated with breath work or around this kind of work. That's deep transformational work that I offer. It's all welcome and honored and respected. Um, but it's to me, like, I think about the ego self, like the ego mind, the sense of separate self. This is Christian, that's hidden over there. Um, if we put a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's that sense of separate personality. Who we are is actually the stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, tiny, tiny part of who we are to think that it is all of who we are, and to make really important, consequential life choices from a small, limited, and always fear based perspective. So, for me, part of what breathwork does, and part of what my work guides people do, is how to pop out of that little tiny identity and have a sense of who we really are, which is really the stadium.
Uh, while you were talking about this, I thought about who was it that was like, there was a psychologist or who wrote a book, You Are Okay, I Am Okay.
Yeah.
And
Eric Fromm.
he talked about that you have in your brain, you have your parents, you have you, and then you have your child, which is the like hidden conscious like ID, like and when you have this conflict, maybe you have a bad conscience, then it is the child and the parents talking inside your brain. It's just like, and when I read that, when I was in the my studies of social education, I was just like, this is fun. that you can dissect it and you can say, "Oh, shut up, parents!
Yeah, yeah,
I don't need this,"
exactly.
because you can make your own decision. And sometimes we let our parents dictate too much.
Yeah.
Because I have my one story I have always told, that is when I was in Denmark. I studied in Denmark,
Hmm.
and my wife came in '94, close to Easter, and then she went to Iceland, and because she was finishing her studies here, and then all of a sudden the phone rang at midnight, and I was just like, oh God, that can only be one person, and that is my father. So I took the phone because there was only one phone at the door, and he said, "Is it correct what I hear about you?" And I said, "Dad, there is an ocean between us. I don't know what you have been hearing." And when I like spit it out. "What are you saying? Is it correct that you are working in kindergarten?"
That you're working
And I
in
said,
theater?
"Yes, in
Oh, in
kindergarten."
kindergarten. Oh,
And because it's a social educator, so I could have been a kindergarten teacher or a like it's like a vast
right.
of fields that I could work in. And I said, yes, it's all part of the studies. And my teachers, they said, like, kids will help you, they will teach you how to speak Danish, and they will do this and that. And it was only for 3 months. And he just paused, and then he said, "You will go into your room, pack your stuff, and you will be home tomorrow."
Wow.
And my response was, uh, I said to him, "Father dear, just in 20 years, if I'm working in kindergarten, then you are probably dead. So don't give a hoot about what you think me like about me working in a kindergarten." And he was just like, like it was only 3 months. And then from 1st of August the same year, I was in with the like schizophrenic and like the mentally challenged and stuff. And he was like, yeah, he's working with the people who have something defects in the brain. Yeah, like that was totally different man, and I was just like, how
Yeah.
ridiculous! Why are you putting labels on? Like the children, they, as there was said in some great song, I believe the children are the future,
Yeah.
and we have to teach them well, and then that is just it. So I sometimes my father, I was just like,
Yeah, well, I mean, my suspicion, I don't know what was really going on inside of him, but I wonder if it had to do with his expectations of gender roles. Like a man should not be working with kids in a kindergarten.
well, granted, he was born in
Of
1929,
course,
so
different
like that,
generation.
yes, and my mother was born in 1925, so there was a lot of
Yeah,
things that they like. My mother was a typical stay-at-home wife working with my father's business. He was a chef. My father took off with the catering, and then my mother had to clean everything up and and then come and feed
of
us. Like
course.
she was on
Of
24/7,
course.
whereas he was just an alcohol. So
Yeah, it was
that's
a different time, a
it's,
different culture, different expectations.
and yeah, yeah, and while we speak, then David, he has again wrote. It's like David is like he's a good friend of mine. So a lot of leaders believe the command and control structure is the way forward. I am with the belief this is obsolete. Leading with heart, vulnerability, trust, and created an environment of psychological safety wins.
Totally.
And that's true.
Totally
But
agree.
why are leadership? Why are we still clinging to, like in your experience, talking to like leaders in your experience? Why are we still teaching that there are soft skills that you should not go towards to?
Yeah.
Why is it that your well-being is of importance, instead of like you just show up to work and you shut up and you do the thing?
Yeah,
That was before.
because to me it's part of the same thing we're talking about, gender roles and the patriarchal power structure. And this misunderstanding of what it means to be a man. Like somewhere along the way, like we were talking about before, we turn the emotions into weakness. And so little men are supposed to not feel anything, and we're supposed to walk around with armors and uncaring, unfeeling robots. But it all stems from that misunderstanding that the emotions are weakness. It's like, no, the emotions are not weakness. They're not strength either. They're just energies coursing through us.
Yeah.
And also a misunderstanding of the feminine, right? That we have turned the feminine into something weakness. It's like, wait a minute. You
Yeah.
want to talk courage, power, resilience, the power of creation that resides in the female body? Um, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I think that like now wasn't it there's something from the U.S. Well, there are so many things that are bonkers from the U.S. right now.
Totally.
Somebody was talking about taking the women's right to vote again because man and husband should be one vote.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like it's
It's
just like
insane.
where do you live in the dark ages or like where
Well,
like what?
it's crazy.
My wife she played soccer when she was 9 years old and she was multi champion in Iceland and whatnot like and I like she would have killed me if I said like oh you have to quit football or soccer like but
No, it's
they
clear
like
that,
why
it's like going back in time, trying to go back to a time where, the 1950s, where the gender roles were clear and the women stayed home
yeah,
and were housewives and baked cakes, and the men went out and make money. But things are changing. Like in the U.S., and these are like 5-year-old statistics. When I was researching that book, in 40% of the heterosexual households in the US, the woman is making more money than the man. Um, and
yeah,
and that's why so many men are having a crisis of identity. If I'm not the breadwinner, if I'm not then who am I? And so they're no, 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 I can't do this. And let's go back to a time when things were clearer. And it's
yeah,
impossible to go back in time, but that's what some people are trying to do.
yeah. Yeah, and it's weird. It's just weird.
It's
Like
weird
it's
and
just
tragic and
why
unfortunate.
should we go back? Why should we go back
Yeah, it's
to
impossible.
something? Because I remember, I don't know if you remember it, because parents, men particularly, like fathers, they were so strict that everybody, like when the father was coming home, everybody was just like, oh, father is coming. Because you were not allowed to sneeze because he was tired.
Yeah.
So it's just like crazy. But to your book again, because you say like heal toxic relationship patterns, negotiate power structures, negotiate power struck,
Yeah.
negotiate power struggles successfully,
Yeah.
stop cheating yourself and playing small, and conquer insecurity and
Yeah.
unworthiness. But when because I have to ask you because you have gone through the psychology studies and having 25-year-old twins and remembering how me and my wife I thought like everything was okay and we did a great job and then my daughter came home am I ugly and I was just like what where did that come from because the power of social media we did struggle
Well,
about this too like we were supposed but in a different way because we were supposed to be like macho and everything and downgrading women or speaking ill of but and I was just like what where did this come from like
mhm.
and because I have a boy and a girl and the discussion was always what will she become
Right.
and I was just like it was never questioned that he could be a doctor or a lawyer or blah 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 but she could be a nurse like I was just like wait a minute
Good.
she can be a doctor if she
She can
wants.
be whatever she wants to be. Yeah.
Yes, and I was just like, where does this come from? Why are we speaking of it? Why are we
Yeah.
talking about this?
Yeah, it's the conditioning, and I think we're living in these amazing, extraordinary times, and one way to think about what's happening is the end of the patriarchal. And not to go back to a time where, like what we want is balance. We don't want to go back to a matriarchal culture either. What we need is balance, both in here, um, because like your friend David was saying, we've these things that we have labeled feminine, like vulnerability, we have turned to weakness. Where actually the power is in vulnerability. Um, the power is in being in touch with our emotions and developing emotional intelligence. Um, that's where the power really lies. And think about, like, one of the things I did in the book is compare like the worldly power with the internal power. And so think of a Gandhi or a Gandalf, if you appreciate the Lord of the Rings, in their
Yeah.
simple monastic robes, their sandal feet. From looking at them from the outside, you never know how much power they had until it's necessary, until it's called for, and then get out of the way. Gandhi
Mm.
brought the British Empire to its knees without ever shooting a single gun or landing a single punch, like using the principles of nonviolence. That's power.
Yeah.
And it's humble. It
So
doesn't need to prove anything to anybody.
yeah, and also we are taught that admitting you are wrong, that is fatal. That is just like, no, 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 no. I'm never wrong. And but it's fascinating to talk about this uh, in the sense of how powerful breathing is, because we all breathe,
Yeah.
and if we don't breathe, that means only one thing, and that is that you are
Yes.
very much dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but why is it that people, like, when we talk about the soul, or like the title awakening the soul of power, like it sounds like, oh no, that is just a mumbo jumbo,
Right.
that like,
Right.
that's nothing for me because I am
Right.
and then they turn around and then they take up the Bible and quote some Bible thing where it was written ages ago, and
And
in a
translated and
totally
mistranslated and retranslated.
yeah, and in a totally strange scenario where they had sand and like they didn't have the things we have today.
Yeah.
So
And at a time
why
where
is
women
it that
weren't even considered human, women were property.
yeah, 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 and it's just like weird. But why is it that we taught, like, that's why I asked you before about when you went into your father, who was like, he had this degree in, and you said to him, like, yeah, I found out like breathing. Ooh, that is
Yeah.
the thing. Because like how, why, where is it that we are reluctant to say, okay, the power, the soul of power?
I know, I know. And my father was, from what I hear, he was a good psychiatrist from people who used to work with him. But with his own emotions, he was clueless. He was clueless,
Yeah.
and I was clueless. I mean, I learned from him. For him, it was the power of the mind, the superior power of the mind. Emotions are weakness. And so 30 years ago, when I started doing this work, I had to like develop my own EQ. And I did it in a very basic way. There was, at that time we didn't have iPhones, so I had a timer, that I put in my desk or in my office, and I had a chart that I created with certain emotions, and then a grid over time, like on the hour, or 2 hours, I forget what it was. My timer would go off, and then I take 2 minutes, and not even 30 seconds is all it took. Am I feeling that? Mm-mm. Am I feeling that? Mm-mm. Am I feeling that? Maybe. And that's how I began to educate myself about the emotions.
You have to say 40 years because like we are on the verge of 29 all of a sudden.
True, true, true.
You have to update the mechanism because I'm just like, no, it was not. Yeah. But, but
True.
in your fellowship, like your siblings, for example, were they open minded? So, because you mentioned them, like your mother tried it, didn't get it maybe, or whatnot, like, but maybe your
Yeah, my
siblings, did
siblings have all
they?
tried it, and to different degrees. Some of them are still more within the acculturation of religion. That some of them are still practicing Catholics, but very open, but very open, not in a very strict, dogmatic, fundamentalist way. My one thing that I really do appreciate about my family and the environment that our parents created is that love is the most important thing. And so that superficial differences about how we live, what choices we make about our life, what kind of relationships we choose to have, that's all secondary.
But it's because you mentioned Catholicism. Now, what do you say? Catholics, like, how do you say the words? You are Catholicism.
Catholicism.
How do you say? You thank you.
Yeah.
uh, is that something that I don't know? When we talk religion, are they? Do they accept talking about the soul
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and working with your inner, like that you have your own
For
power?
they do now.
But speaking of love, because I was talking to Will Smith the other week, and he wrote a book called Free to Lead, and his father listened to the book.
Mm,
And then afterwards, he said to his son, the Will Smith's brother, he said the big L word, "I love you,"
mm,
and that created a whole another scenario about they both opened up and could speak
yeah,
freely, like whereas it's a lot of the times when you are with your parents you just like, oh, is that the
yeah,
time I have to go?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
are just
yeah,
running
yeah.
away. So it is, my parents, they never show like love. That was only at Christmas,
Yeah.
because then you had to be nice, because or else you would go somewhere. And that's why I told my wife in the beginning of our really, I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
In the beginning of our relationship, I said, like, if we get kids, when we do have kids, then I will tell them every morning I love them.
That's beautiful.
And when they go to sleep, I will say good night, I
That's
love you.
beautiful.
Because they not go walk around thinking, I don't know if my father loves me.
Right. Right. And
Because
again,
because
it's
I walked around.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was what we're talking about, the generational thing. They weren't taught to feel emotions
Yeah.
and much less express them. Um,
And they still today, like
yeah.
when they come, like my daughter, she has bought her house with her boyfriend and everything. But when she comes, and it's like we hug her, we kiss her, and say, "I love you, thank you for coming,"
Yeah. Yeah.
because you never know. We can be gone tomorrow,
In a
and and
blink of an eye.
and they should not. Kids should not have the doubt in their mind that the parents don't love
Yeah.
them, and it's not enough to say, "Well, they know that."
Yeah, yeah. No, I recently had a client, a woman, and she was probably 83, I think she was. And she did breath work with me, like lay down on the floor and breathe. And when she came out of it, it was a group of maybe 20, 30 people. She came out of it and she said, you know what? I can't believe that it's taken me 83 years to realize that daddy loved me. Um, it's like,
Mhm.
let's not waste that much time. Let's teach our kids, like you're talking about, that they are loved no matter what.
And you have to say it.
Yeah.
You have to say it. You have to express
Yeah.
it. It's not by giving expensive
Yeah.
toys or iPhone or whatnot. Like, that is not of value.
Yeah.
The value is in the word.
Yeah, like, it's
I
interesting. My
love.
mother was very affectionate and, physically effusive that way.
Uh,
My dad was all in the head, but he showed his love through acts. Like, after working all day
uh,
hard, seeing clients, to feed 9 kids, he would help us with homework. He would tell us stories. Um, so that's how he showed his love.
uh, but he didn't
He
say
didn't
it,
say it.
and
He didn't say it.
that is like when you need it.
Yeah,
Maybe like it's just like food for thought. Because I am just, you are loved.
yeah,
If you say it just to a total stranger, or you can see, like, I was in a youth clubs, and I told, like, you have to believe that you are wanted.
yeah,
It's not, you are here for a reason.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
So
And let's not
it's just
wait, to your 40, 50, 60, 70. You have to come to me, spend a weekend breathing to realize that you are lovable and that you don't need anybody's validation to know that you are that, period.
I remember when I came from Denmark at Christmas, the first Christmas, like after 4 months or something, and I hugged my sister and I hugged my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and they both went, "Is this a thing now to hug?" And I was just like, "What?"
Yeah.
Because the Danes, they always hug. Like it's just like, and in COVID, it was like they chopped my arms off because I couldn't hug people. I was just like, no, that was the worst of it. Everything.
Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to hug.
Mm.
But time flies when you're having fun. We have 3 minutes left, and I just like this. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that we could talk because we have met before, just in order to talk about the session. So I just urge people to look at your stuff, and this must be a good read, like in the night time when you go to sleep, because then you get the like good thoughts in your brain, and then the subconscious can go through it. But people can find you on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X under the name of Christian de la Huerte.
Yeah.
Huerta.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect. I'm not on X, but
I
I'm
once
on all
tried
the
to
other
be.
ones, but not on X.
Oh, because I picked that up on your good segment to your homepage website, because I found that on your soulfulpower.com,
Yeah, maybe my
and
assistant
I
put
will
me on X,
repeat
but
it.
I'm not on X, like knowingly. Yeah.
Well, your website is
Yes.
soulfulpower.com, and just people go. It's heaps of information there, and loads of stuff, and it's just. And I'm fun because you mentioned something that we are when we are expressing, stuff. Always told me, "Why are you so curious?" And look at me today, and I am all like,
Mhm.
I love it because my curiosity made me like. I have a podcast. I meet a heck of like people who are so interesting, and I'm just like, yeah,
And it keeps
because
us
it
young.
gives, yeah, it gives us
Keeps us
energy
young.
and
Keeps
yeah.
us learning. That's where growth happens.
Oh, good final words from Christian de la Huerta. But I just want to say before we sign off that the next inspiring conversation is with Eric Robinson on next Thursday, the 23rd of July, listening for the truth. And boy, oh boy, when I talked to him in like 3 months ago or something, how about being a man of the church, quitting the church and switching to I think FBI.
Mm.
That was, I was just like, what? And like his story is amazing. I love those stories. It's just like unbelievable. I was just like, did you go from the peaceful thing of being in the church and then just like, doo-doo-doo, Mission Impossible?
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
Oh yes, always. People, it's always. But Christian, it has been amazing conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as well as I, because if you don't, then it's too late to regret it because it is already out there, so we can't do anything. And
Yeah.
like as I always say to people, like be curious, be interested, be inspired, and the newest one, be audacious.
I love
Believe
that.
to do the stuff. Yes. So thank you very much, Christian, and just have a great summer.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on the show. And thanks for having the show, because I know that in your willingness to do that, a lot of lives are being impacted. And thank you.
Thank you very much.